For some people, it is why it is very confusing that what the migration are and why we create migration and what they are. So it is not very difficult and to understand the actual schema of migration, the actual schema builder of migration. And in a typical database, while we create tables, we add some columns and we add different things and we revert back our table, and we may create database or different types of database. So uh, in a typical database that we use, we have to create our database. So it's become very difficult when you in some stages of your application somehow. So you start your application, and at the some stage that you see that there must be uh, you need to add some tables, or you need required some columns in your database. So how you can do that this in your table? So definitely you have to go your database and schema, and you have to manually change the things that if you need a column that you are you need any record to in your database, so you have to manually change and everything, and it will become very hectic. Suppose this right now, suppose this is an database, so it is not in okay. So this is our database. We have a different table in our database: budgets, companies, categories, currency. And when we look at our budgets, so here is the data that we have an add column. So suppose we have I need our column somewhere else, so we have to manually adjust in our database. So it is not good, and you have to do a lot of things to do if in one table and more than one table. So we have to do in our table. So what if the migration, what are they are? And migration actually is the schema builder that you build your schema and Laravel, and it will keep track of everything that you are creating in your database at some stage or at any level of your application in progress use. So you can change it and you can retrieve it back to the state that where it is you started right now. So it's very simple and easy to manage the migration. So default, suppose that we have create a migration database in MySQL, and somehow you need to change your database engine. So right now Postgre or SQL Server, that what you can do right when you have you created your all the database in MySQL. So it's become very difficult for developer that to change the actual database behind you. But in migration it is very simple and easy task. Normally we have to just migrate our the database schema builder, and it will whatever database behind it, whether it is MySQL, Postgre, SQL, or Oracle. So simply we have to migrate, and it will build our schema database. It will build the database behind the scene, and with the fraction of time. So we know that where is our migration in a database and migrations table. So we have by default Laravel provide the two migration table. We actually it is using for authentication. One is a user table and one is for password creation. So in a user, so we have uh, a public function is for one is for up and the one is for down. So this will create our schema it will build our schema for database. And if we want to retrieve or to roll back our table or single column, so we can use this function down, and it will down our database. So schema is our schema builder that will build our schema in the of database, and create is the helper function of this facade schema. Actually we are using facade. So here is the sport facade schema, and the migration, illuminate database migration. So user is the table and function is the closure, and we are injecting our print blueprint that the actual builder of schema behind that we are extending. So create user table which is extend our migration. It will inject that blueprint in our newly that we are going to create a migration. So just we need to reference instantiate this table, give the reference to increments the id. It will create a primary id. It will use a primary key to create an id. String is for varchar that will create in our database variable character length. So if we go to our sum of table in and tab, so we can see we have a data type of different data. For int it will id, and company id is int, and varchar is for name. So string is for variable character varchar, and increments id it will create a primary key. So here you can see id is the primary key in our database. So same in the case in our migration, it will create a primary key. And table string email, so we can also set its unique, that this email will remain, our database table will be unique, and we can just do it by a helper function unique. And string password also very character remember token, and it is used for our member token that we use for in a user table. So for remembrance, and timestamp is used to create, it will create two column, created and updated at. So and the other function is down, which is a schema drop. If we want to some stage roll back our migration a single table, so we can easily roll back, and we can easily add reset our schema. So let's create this, delete this file, and we will create from start. So how we can see create our migration. So make sure that you are in your source directory, so you can read. Firstly we can see a php artisan list route, sorry not route, just php artisan, and hit enter. We can see how we can create our migrations. So it will give the commands. So make migration is used to create a new migration file, and if we use to migrate php artisan migrate, it will migrate. So it will migrate. And if we use to refresh or install fresh reset rollback status, so we will see how we can do these commands. In first we have, let's create our first migration. So php artisan make migration, and the naming convention is you whatever you want to create. So the best is to name that you can remember. Create users table, and we will use a flag create. So this time it will create a user table, and give the name of your table. So we can give it user. So php artisan make migration, create users table, and with create flag name user. So see, a new migration is now created, and so users table now it has created a schema builder for user, and here we can give our the fields that we want to include. So we can give a table to string for varchar and give the name of user, and you can give the length of your table. So if we see here is the length of your field name, and we can exactly define it here. So you can also give the field name. And let's create for another table string worker, again email, and we want this email to be unique, and it will create a unique. There are a lot of functions that you can use, so it's all depend on you. So also you can give a default value to any. So default is string, or you can give a digit. So default is 0 if you go with 0, or if you give just string, so it will set the default value for your field name. Okay, user name and email and the timestamp is created and updated add. So okay, save it, and let's now create uh, okay, let's migrate our first migration, and PHP to migrate our first migration to PHP artisan migrate. And here is something is wrong with prepare bindings, illuminate database query, exceptions, SQL state, access denied for user homestead. So we cannot create yet our migration because we have not set our database in our environment. So let's come to our environment file and quickly set our database. So let's first create our database here in create new database, and this time I am giving it fresh. So fresh database is this empty, and now we can give our database which is fresh, and the password is nothing. I'm using login as a root to my MySQL server. So username is root and password is blank, no password. So MySQL connection local host, and it is for use to localhost 127.0 localhost, meaning until testing 3306 fresh root. Okay, come to your terminal, and again PHP artisan migrate. So still there is an error. Parse error, syntax unexpected table, and add table. So something wrong in our migration schema. Uh, so table string. So we have not our close our statement. So close terminate your statement, and let's come back and clear screen PHP artisan migrate. So still we have a syntax. A syntax or access violation. Specified key was too long. So this error is in length is 767 bytes. SQL alert user add unique. So specified key was too long. Maximum key length is 7 seconds. So this might be happen to you, or if you are using a PHP version of 7.1 or 7 point, so below that 7.2, so you may you may face this issue. So what we can do to eradicate uh, this error? So come to providers and app service provider. Here we can specify our key. So we can give uh, it is actually what is happening is behind the scene is you if I can show you the length of default length. So this is the default length 191. So the default length is 255 to 255. So in PHP version 7.1 you may face this issue, and how we can fix that issue: just schema and define the length, and schema default string length, and we can define it our string length to 191, and here we can import our schema right here. So let's see, and now this time let's check our create a migration PHP artisan migrate. So state-based table or view already exists. So it is saying table user already exists. So create table users ID not null. Auto increment primary key name. Okay, this table is already exist. Let me check. So it is when we are migrating, it is saying that the table is already exist. And now let's check when we first migrate. So it has created the migrations and user table for us. So let's delete it and drop it first. And also we want to drop the migration table as well. Drop it. So now the fresh database is now empty, and let's refresh it and come to our terminal. Clear this screen. PHP artisan migrate. So this time now the migrations are created successfully. So we have, now let's check to our database and fresh. So we have to refresh our database. So you see we have migrations with table, and it has created for us. So name, which is ID is integer and 10 length, and it is a primary key set. Name is a varchar, email is varchar, and unique, that we have set our unique in when while creating a schema for our database, and created and updated it. And also you can see in our migration table, so it has create with timestamp, it has created with the number one. So the Laravel is keep tracking of your migration. So when you need to roll back, so it will roll back by the migration, because it has the tracking number of the migrations.